I think on the company level, stay informed is really important. Your local association and certainly national is putting out newsletters. I know we all get a ton of emails, but there's a lot of good meat in those to keep you abreast of issues coming down the pipe.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines to those that are driving those changes. I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. And with me this morning is my co-host. I'm not going to say my partner. My co-host, Mr. Dan Gordon. Dan, would you like to say good morning, introduce our sponsors, our special guests, our topic, and I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Good morning. Dan Gordon, PCO bookkeepers and M&A specialists. We do CFO work and exit planning services for the pest and lawn industry. And our sponsors, let's see, if you're interested in marketing from digital strategy to conversion-driven websites, Coalmarch helps pest and green businesses scale smarter. And actually, they're offering a first month free to podcast listeners. Visit coalmarch.com/podcast to claim that offer. Another one of our sponsors, which is they are a loyal sponsor and we are loyal to them, is PestSure, providing insurance products tailor-made for the pest and lawn industries. They understand the risks of our business. Learn more at pestsure.com. And finally, Voice for Pest, which is the pest management industry leader in designing and implementing voice solutions. Learn more at voiceforpest.com/podcast. And finally, if you want to join one of our peer groups, that would be go back and listen to episode 136. Our facilitator is David Billingsley, and he's outstanding, and we really like him. Today, we are going to interview or have a conversation with Allie Allen, who is the VP of Membership and Certifications for the for NPMA, and is the Executive Director of Quality Pro. And I think we've talked about that in the past. Allie's been in the pest management industry for over 19 years, started as a lab tech doing pest control on farms. I didn't know that. Bed bugs in poultry farms brought her to the structural side with degrees in entomology and education. She spent many years at Cornell getting degrees, piling them up, and working Northeastern IPM Center doing pest management in affordable housing from Guam to Maine. Guam, that's pretty neat, huh? She'd worked for a few pest control companies and 10 years ago made the transition from being a member of NPMA to being on the staff of NPMA. Welcome, Allie.
Thanks so much for having me.
I had no idea that you was doing bed bugs in Guam. Are you a military brat? Like, what took you to Guam?
No. So I did my research in veterinary entomology, and bed bugs started infesting the poultry facilities. And my advisor said, no one in our space is doing anything with bed bugs, but I think there's a Cornell alum that I think is doing something on that. Let me put you in touch with him. And it was Doc Frischman who brought me to Purdue and took me under his wing and kind of introduced me to this industry, to the structural pest control industry. And I left Purdue being like, bugs are bugs, IPM's IPM. These people are amazing. And I switched careers right there. And then for Cornell for about 10 years, I ran a program called the Stop Pests in Housing program that was funded by HUD and USDA. And I was kind of the between public housing authorities, just traditional public housing authorities, and the community and the pest control company and the residents and everything. So I worked at housing authorities from Guam to Portland. And so actually working with the Guam Housing Authority, and then we also stopped over into the Hawaii Housing Authority. Those were like my clients for that grant.
Not bad assignments, might I say.
Not bad assignments. Yeah.
Where did you do bed bugs? Were you doing it before it was cool? Like,
I remember that the extension entomologist, her name was Carolyn Class, she brought in a sample to the lab and said, I bet none of you have ever seen one of these before. And we all looked and, we had our shiny new entomology degrees and we're all looking at this thing, not having any clue what it was. And that was the first bedbug sample that was brought in to the, at that time, cooperative extension with Cornell. And then it just flooded. And I used to keep a colony, and there's still, I run into pictures that I took of, my hands with all the fed bed bugs, and just being right on the cusp of all of that was really fun. I worked for Bedbug Central for a time doing all their stuff. And yeah, just kind of rode that bedbug wave right into the structural pest control industry.
Mm.
Nice. Nice,
Well,
nice, nice.
let's start with your role at NPMA. How'd you get there? What's your day to day? And I know you and I have done a couple of talks at different conferences, so I think you have a pretty interesting background. So why don't you start there?
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned, doing that Stop Pests and Housing program, I was able to influence a lot of folks and educate a bunch of people on the importance of professional pest management and insects and pest management is like the great equalizer. We can be combative on a bunch of different topics, but everybody can agree that bed bugs and cockroaches are bad. And it was just kind of it was cool to work in these communities around public health and bring everyone together and really see some great change with the exception of the procurement folks. And we'd bring them to the table and they'd say, all right, you crazy bug lady, we get it. You care about IPM and you want us to know, the number of legs that a bed bug has. But at the end of the day, we just need to know how to write an RFP to hire a quality pest control company. Like, help us write a good RFP because we're also writing the RFPs for roofing and paint and cleaning and all that. How do we do it? Isn't there something we can point to and just know that the companies that we're partnering with are professional? And that answer for our industry is Quality Pro. So at the time, I was actually serving on a committee and with NPMA, and Jim Fredericks was actually one of my PMPs at the Baltimore Housing Authority. And he made the switch over to NPMA and kind of brought me along with him because it was the opportunity to influence our industry's credentialing program and really lift that up as the solution to procuring professional pest management that really motivated me and intrigued me. And so that's what brought me from the university side over to NPMA was credentialing. And since then, I've just learned to love the trade association model and all that a trade association can do for an industry. And I love this industry so much, and how I can serve it through the association is really motivating to me. So for about the last year, I'm now in charge of both credentialing and membership. So I've kind of embraced and done a lot of continuing education on the trade association side, and I'm now running membership. So everything to do with recruitment, retention, engagement of the membership, and also professionalizing the industry through credentialing is my team's responsibility, and everybody at NPMA focuses on that as well.
So you were at the 2025 NPMA Executive Leadership Forum, and I'm sure there were tons and tons of things talked about at that meeting. Can you just kind of walk us through some of the things that you heard, like as far as like, what the meeting was about? I mean, obviously, I think a lot of folks probably see emails about it. Maybe they understand what it is, maybe they don't. But maybe just kind of brief overview what that meeting is, what the intent of the meeting is, and then kind of some issues, right, that you've heard or some challenges that a lot of folks are dealing with as a result from that meeting.
Yeah, I think the Executive Leadership Forum, and we'll say ELF just to keep it short for the rest of this Executive Leadership Forum, it's a hidden gem within the industry, but just like everything NPMA does, everybody is welcome. So if what you hear in this intrigues you, know this meeting happens every June. Next year it'll be in Savannah. It's usually somewhere pretty fun. And what it is that in order for an association to remain relevant and healthy, we got to be future looking. We need to make sure that the association is seeing over the horizon and knows what the challenges are that are coming and the opportunities so that we can keep our strategic plan oriented in the right direction. So this meeting happens every June just before the beginning of the new fiscal and membership year. And it brings together the boards of directors of our four organizations, which are NPMA, the association, the Pest Management Foundation, which is our 501(c)(3) that funds research and scholarships, the PPMA, Professional Pest Management Alliance, which is kind of the consumer outreach arm of the association, and Quality Pro and NPMA Pro, which handles credentialing. So those four entities, plus our steering committees and all of the chairs of our committees. So it's really bringing together the folks who have committed their time to being volunteer leaders for the year ahead to make sure we're getting their thoughts and what the businesses are anticipating for the year so we can remain relevant. And in addition to all of those boards and committees meeting, we also usually have a keynote that is talking about some, overarching issues. So this year we brought in an economist to talk about, economic trends that are influencing the US right now. And then we also have this P3 session, which is moderated by Steve Good, who may have been on this podcast before, a friend to many. And he interviews and surveys industry leaders ahead of time, brings the insights from that survey to a general session, and then has panels on the top topics. And the audience kind of engages in a discussion on what each of their companies are doing in respect to those topics. So that's kind of the bird's eye view of what the meeting's about. This year, I don't know if you want to dive right in, but
what kind of topics did you guys talk about? Yeah.
So the topics that came out for every year, workforce tops it in terms of the survey results of what are the most pressing issues, what's the most relevant thing to your business right now. Workforce continues to be the top issue. And so a lot of what NPMA does is, what's the association's role in this workforce challenge? This year, the other top topics were regulatory challenges, which of course the association has a huge role in. The general economy, which was really relevant that we brought the economist in. There was a lot of dovetails in those conversations. And then insurance. Insurance hadn't made it into the top four before, but this year, insurance and liability made it into the top four topics that are relevant to the industry in the year ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys did you talk at all about kind of tariffs and trade, those type? I mean, because I kind of feel like with the economic side of things, that's just been all over the news, and it's been up and down. It's been absolute chaos. It's like they're on, they're off, they're on, off. Did you guys talk about that at all, and inflation and kind of what that's, for us, and I'm speaking for Triangle right now, we obviously feel it when the housing market slows down, the overall general economy. Now we're fairly insulated in the markets that we're in, but not completely. And so whenever there's a change in the housing market, we certainly see it on our end. I mean, it's not massive, but it is absolutely noticeable. So did you guys discuss those issues at all?
Absolutely. And I want to give props to ITR Economics was the keynote that came in. Dominique, who's the CEO of NPMA, she had gotten wind of him through her Vistage group. And he came in and spoke. And one of the big headlining topics that he spoke about was tariffs and trade. I will say it wasn't, we left his talk with that not being the most pressing concern in terms of what you need to factor into your strategy for the next couple of years. The US economy will continue to grow despite the tariffs. I think the main impact is the uncertainty. And uncertainty is bad for the economy, and tariffs are the root of a lot of uncertainty right now. But his kind of overarching message was, we're all going to adjust. Raising prices aggressively, which I know came up in your May summary of topics, or was it the June summary that came up? Like raising prices aggressively may be part of the tariff response, but that will include pest control companies raising their prices. And I think talking about evaluating the cost-cutting options that are available, but don't let your eye leave the long-term growth goals, and to really not be too distracted by all of the tariff news. Certainly when you can be US centric and you're thinking, be that way, but overall, kind of the trends he was talking about was more about inflation in general, not directly linked to tariffs, and that there's not going to be a significant drop in inflation. Whatever debt you need to take on, just accept that what we have now is as good as it's going to be for the foreseeable future. If you need to take on debt, do it before 2030. What he was projecting was a lot of the downward trends and difficulties would come in the early 2030s. So I think everyone left, texting their spouses saying, all right, just buy the house. Now's the time. Like, it's not going to get any better than this. So that was one of the kind of overarching messages that people left with.
Wow. I'm curious, what was the 2030 switch? Like, what was and I don't want to get too far into this talk, but you piqued my interest with this, like that, we're going to drop off a cliff on 2030. I know it's not what you said, and I'm just having fun there, but why was he saying that 2030 is kind of the marker?
Demographic shift a lot. I think just the folks transitioning into the next phase of life, related healthcare costs around that, the inflation not having lightened up, and the U.S. national debt. Those were kind of the top
Hmm.
things that were going to come to a head in the early 2030s. And according to his projections, curious to know if Dan's seeing the same things or thinking the same
Oh,
things.
we
But
we hear that always, well, so it's real easy to go out that far and make a prediction, because, so we'll see. But yeah, there are demographic shifts. Um, but as far as inflation, if you can keep it around 2 or 3%, that's darn good. So yeah, we
yeah.
spiked to 9% for a month or two, and then came back in. And right now, the tariffs. Okay, so there's some tariffs on some of the raw materials that go into the materials that we use, but material costs are 7%. So, that's not going to make a big deal. The tariffs might affect the vehicles that we buy. So if you buy a Toyota, and even if it gets hit with a $10,000 tariff, you're going to amortize that over 4 years. So that's not going to be a big deal. Tariffs are definitely a problem, but I don't think for our industry, I really don't.
Mhm. That's kind of what people left with as well. Now, if that vehicle gets in a collision and insurance gets involved, that's a big hit to
Oh,
business
sure.
and
Yeah,
workforce.
yeah, so we had Todd Burke on a couple weeks ago, and some of the things that he was saying was quite disturbing about private equity getting involved with structured settlements and managing or financing these lawsuits that would have been settled pretty quickly. That to me is scary. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the other side of that though is, that may not have a massive impact on day-to-day business operations, but I also think about even our consumer and the impact on them, and then what does that mean for sales, and what does that mean for cancels, and while that can't be a direct, oh, that's, now our truck costs twice as much. It could be, well, now our cancel rate is double to what it is, or we're not able to generate as many leads because, in our consumer is under more pressure due to inflation. So who knows, right? I mean, with economics, I mean, we could spend that all however we want. I was just curious to hear, the why he was thinking that we're going to fall off a cliff in 2030s, but
Thomas.
uh,
It seems
so
demographics, the people seem to be the foundation, demographic shift and just workforce trends. There's a lot of unknown. The difference between the youngest folks in the workforce and the oldest folks in the workforce right now is pretty extreme. And
yeah,
what's going to happen in the future with all of
yeah,
those shifts.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, Yeah, and I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's like most things, right? I mean, it's Notre Dame. I mean, people. I mean, how many times have we been told it's going to be the end of the world? And I'm not making light of what the guy said.
Yeah,
Don't take it
No,
that way at all. I just, sometimes I look at that, but there is no doubt that there's a lot of pressure. And listen, I love his advice about just go ahead and take on debt if you need to, because I think the days of 2% interest rates, those days are long gone.
exactly.
Long gone.
Accept the reality, plan for a more expensive workforce,
Yes.
plan for increased insurance costs, be creative, but it was all came down to people. I mean, engaging your workforce, there's not some magical reservoir of workers that are going to flood our industry looking to kill public health pests, even though what we do for the world is not diminishing in value and diminishing in demand. It's the people doing our work that is the big challenge. So
Yeah.
leaning into to hiring right, training right, retaining your people, that even came out of an economics presentation.
So you have here in the outline P3 session. What does that mean? I think I know what it means. And how did that come out?
Yeah, P3 session is the one that Steve Good leads, and doing the survey ahead of time to get some data from attendees and then having a panel to engage in a conversation on the top issues. So we had panels on workforce, regulatory, and insurance with representatives from 3 or 4 companies for each of those areas, and then a facilitated conversation with the audience of just, is this resonating with your company? Are you doing anything new? And just really interesting ideas coming out of both the audience and the panel.
So
And
the
what
is
I was going to say, what came out of that?
Yeah.
pressing, right?
Pick a topic. I guess workforce is the most seamless transition, and it's always the top. For those who are going to tune out at 30 minutes, we'll get that in now. Is
Yeah.
is I think we didn't hear that much innovative stuff from companies. It's just playing the game hard, realizing there is a game to be played in hiring. You got to be engaged with your community and known in your community. You gotta experiment with other tools, but at the end of the day, most people end up circling back to Indeed and touching base to see how that's changed. They just kind of own that market. And then referral programs have always been a huge way for companies to build out their workforce, and that continues to be true. It's just the amount and how people pay out for referrals that seems to change over time. And so just kind of talking through those different options.
So tell us about this. NPMA has this workforce development program that I've been hearing about for the past several years in all their newsletters and whatnot. And I don't know, Donnie, are you involved with that at all? Or
Well, you know what? I was going to ask the same question because we have not, but I have been interested in it, and I just have not had a chance to really dive into what it does. So this is a fantastic way for all of us to learn a little bit more because I have not. But yeah.
Perfect. And I'd say workforce development is an initiative of NPMA that isn't in a pretty little package. Everybody has a different need for workforce development of their company. If you're a single owner operator, your workforce development is very focused on you. If you're hiring 1 or 2 people a year, that's one level. If you're hiring 50 people a year, that's another level. NPMA has resources for every size company relevant to workforce development. So there's not like one place you can go and see a checklist. It's more, come to npmapestworld.org and start searching for what your company needs. So under that umbrella of workforce development, things that we're doing to support the industry is we do have a PR firm working on behalf of the industry to just attract people to careers in pest control. And it points everybody to pestcontroljobs.com and or pest control jobs, yeah, pestcontroljobs.com. I always forget if it's an org or a com. And every NPMA member now has unlimited free job postings to that website. So that is a great way to get your jobs seen. And it also is a great place for folks who are curious about careers in professional pest management to go. We've got a lot of focus on military hiring. And so NPMA has become a DoD SkillBridge partner, which means we've got an approved program that folks who are exiting the military into their civilian life can exit smoothly right into a job in professional pest management. And the DoD helps front the cost of that employee. And so member companies can partner with NPMA to be one of the companies that gets an exiting service member as an employee, and that's been a wonderful program and really leaning into something that I know a lot of our members value. We've got, of course,
Hang on.
quality.
Can I just
Yeah,
expand on that for a minute? Because
absolutely.
I just had a nephew go through this, not for pest control, but I was just floored. Um, this is a funny story. So he did the same career that I did when I was a young guy. He was an aircraft mechanic, and he was actually born when I left for boot camp. My sister had him when I was, but so obviously it's been a long time ago. I remember like he got a job or an internship at a maintenance facility here in Greensboro, and the military is going to pay essentially 5 months for him to be there. And then at the end of that 5 months, then they have an option to hire him or not, which is just kind of crazy if you're an owner, right? You could basically test drive risk free. So I had heard about SkillBridge, and I'm like, that's actually pretty good. I was
It
like,
is pretty good.
we got
It
to
is
get
pretty
into
good.
this, like we need to
Sounds to
check
me like
this
a
out.
lot of paperwork, though.
I'm sure it's probably a lot of paperwork, anything with the government is, but like most things though, once you kind of get through the pain of that, and you've got you've got a system in place. That's not a bad deal. Not a bad deal at all. So
And
anyway,
NPMA's lowered the paperwork pain point a little bit. The reason so companies can be direct partners with DoD, but NPMA going through NPMA, we know the paperwork and we've already submitted kind of the onboarding curriculum. And so a company can reach out to us, NPMA at pestworld.org, and we'll kind of hold your hand through the process so that we're kind of the conduit that gets folks from military right to your door. And yeah, the government picks up the paycheck for the first couple of months. And I think another added benefit is we have this approved onboarding program for these service members. And it's just a good onboarding program that I think companies that are partnering through the DoD SkillBridge program are their other new hires are benefiting from that process because we all know in order to retain people, you have to onboard them right and make sure they have that great experience.
yeah. Well, I interrupted you there. You were talking about Quality Pro. You were talking about pestcontroljobs.com. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So continue on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great one to pause on because it is
Yeah.
one of the newer programs, and to emphasize they can get more companies participating in it is really important. Quality Pro's been around for 20 years, but its foundation, I mean, Quality Pro was really made, as I know TJ said a couple of episodes ago. I know those standards are meant to help companies hire and grow right. There's lots of folks in this industry that are entrepreneurs and they were really good at killing pests and really good at taking care of their customers. And so they go out on their own and they start a pest control company. And then the realities of hiring people and all this HR stuff hit them in the face. And Quality Pro Standards is kind of that playbook for how you do that side of your business well. And then we've got a ton of resources linked to that. We got model job descriptions and model interview questions, model employment application, kind of that HR toolkit to help you hire right. And if you do have any challenges that come up in the realm of HR for many, many years, one of the NPMA money saving programs for members is C Management Associates, which is an HR firm that's on call for pest management companies that are members of NPMA. So I get calls all the time, someone who's got an employee issue and they just want to talk through it with a professional. NPMA members can pick up the phone and call C and they're not going to get charged for it, which is probably our most utilized money saving program.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Go
And then I
ahead.
think, yeah, just one last one in that. One of the conversations that comes up a lot is how do we engage students? How do we get to kids? And, there's some insurance complexities to how much of a kid you can hire in your business, but certainly engaging the next generation and helping them build a career path that leads them to us at some point is important. So we've got Pest World for Kids that is launching a new fun game for to engage kids with pest management. And through our Pest Management Foundation, we've got a bunch of new programs starting up that will get to high school and college age kids.
Just can't let them drive, right? I mean, I think that's the
I
thing,
know.
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
All right,
Uh,
so we talked a little bit. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan. I'll let you do a question here.
Regulatory, we came back from legislative day, and I thought that was outstanding, and it always is. It's probably the most underrated meeting that NPMA does, but it's pretty important. Any, these politicians probably have much more important things to do than deal with our, piddly issues. But what came out of that?
Yeah. So regulatory came up number two on the survey of important issues for the industry, and we really sunk our teeth into that. I think on the company level, stay informed is really important. Your local association and certainly national is putting out newsletters. I know we all get a ton of emails, but there's a lot of good meat in those to keep you abreast of issues coming down the pipe. And as Dan said, legislative day is really cool. I mean, if you have a goal in your life of visiting Washington, D.C., which I think everyone should, do it for Legislative Day. Come to the NPMA meeting, bring your family. There's a kids program that ensures the kids see all of DC and they walk across the stage, which is always really fun. And we hold your hand and actually bring you to the halls of Congress and the House and give you talking points and Dan, they do care. I mean, I go with the Maine contingent. My family's from Maine, so I go to them, and every year we're talking to the same staffer, and she's got a rat problem. So every year we're kind of checking in on her rats, and I mean, pest control is relevant to everyone, and I think attending Legislative Day really humanizes DC and makes you realize that yeah, even though you're just one person, your voice does matter, and NPMA makes it really easy for you to be in the right place with the right people to make yourself heard. And I think one of the themes that came out of the Executive Leadership Forum under regulatory was to kind of take that confidence you gain by attending Legislative Day and bring it to the local level. That at the local level, the politics are much more passion based than science based. The folks that are proposing regulations and law changes are not doing it based in science. They're doing it based more in gut reaction. And to have our industry in those conversations able to speak on behalf of the industry at the local level is really important. So if you have any inclination to get involved in, I won't say politics, but just in public policy, please be in touch with your local association and see how you can help out. Again, we're really good. We got a whole team who will make sure you're in the right place, talking to the right people with talking points. What matters most is you're the pulse that shows up in your local. That means a lot to our representatives.
Well, I have a little pro tip to add to our listeners that's never done this. This actually happened just, I guess it was last month here in North Carolina. There was a county commissioner meeting in Mecklenburg County, and a guy showed up and threw bed bugs out and got removed from the meeting. So don't do that when you go legislative day, right? But it would absolutely get their attention for sure. And I imagine you would get you heard. It would also probably get you arrested. So I'm going to link this article up because it's actually pretty funny. I'm
So
talking, I was started laughing.
Not an approach we recommend.
Not an approach, just a little pro tip. Anyway, Dan, you were going to say something.
this was a pest guy that did this, or just
I
some-
have no idea who this person was, but I just saw it on the newsreel and I'm like, you got to be kidding. So I read it, of course. And then sure enough, this guy shows up at this officials meeting and then like, everyone's got their beef. I mean, politics these days is more like a circus and it's just part of the show,
Yeah, Allie, you talked about it being more science-based at the top. I don't think so at all.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
pro tip when
I
you
was waiting
go,
for Connie to
not,
say
yeah, don't do that. So anyway,
The one thing that I would tell you about Legislative Day is it's an NPMA event, but it's done by the states. So they have this big ball,
right.
and they have tables for each state, and you go to your state, and then they give you the talking points, and then you talk to the legislator from your state. And it's if nothing else, you really learn how government works or doesn't work, as the case may be. But it's pretty neat, So I always enjoy it every year. So
Yeah.
It's so cool. It is. I took me about 8 years with NPMA to actually do the hill visits. I was even nervous. And yeah, there's no way to describe it except that you'll get there and it'll be fine. And it's not nearly as scary as you think it is. And it's just so cool to be literally walking the halls of Congress.
It is really cool. Well, we're getting towards the end here, and I want to give you a little bit of chance to talk about what's coming up in NPMA and kind of what listeners should know about. Can you just kind of walk through what you guys have coming up and, maybe even some of the results of what you said, obviously aligning the association with the needs of the membership. Can you just talk through what you guys have coming down the pike and what listeners should know about before we finish out here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole point of Executive Leadership Forum and that P3 process is to make sure we're hitting on what's relevant most to the industry in everything that we do in the year ahead. So workforce, insurance, the regulatory stuff, you're going to see that no matter where you hit NPMA. A couple of things that I would highlight for listeners is this is the beginning of your membership year for most states and provinces. So if you're not a member, join. Go to npmapestworld.org. And if you're curious about your local association, you can go to npmapestworld.org/association partners and go right to the website of your local association. They need your membership and your time as much as we do. And for events that are coming up, we got our Academy in July, which is not summer camp for adults, but
I'm sorry.
but you
It's
see the
not.
pictures.
Yeah,
Absolutely is.
you guys are
It
busy.
is
Good fun.
it the best way to do network is to go through an experience with someone. And
Mhm.
in Academy, we strip you down, put on a uniform, and you just live, eat, and breathe a team for the whole week. And you come out of that week not only with awesome education on business development and professional development, but this network of professionals that you've kind of forged this bond through going through crazy things and crazy fun games and stuff like that. So it's a very cool conference. Pest World's coming up Orlando, October 21st through 24th. Next year will be Texas. Our Spotlight series this year, we've got Sustainability on April 14th and Safety Summit will be April 15th, both in Chicago. So we got a whole bunch of events, but those are some ones I wanted to highlight. Certainly search our website. We've got CEU classes, a new hire training program for our members in Canada. Our most popular course right now is our new hire training. Lots of workforce resources like the money saving program with C Management Associates, all that jazz. We do have a new credentialing program, NPMA Pro Certified, which is targeting for companies that are building out career paths for their employees. It's a great way to retain those awesome professionals that you just want to copy and paste them. It's a certification for just a well-rounded technician, and qualification is 1 year of experience in the industry. And finally, I know you all have your networking group, but NPMA has one as well. We've got our Hives program. And the next Hives program, the sign up is live and will begin in August. And so that's our peer networking group that I encourage everyone to get in on.
Playing the Hives program.
Yeah, so Hives is we actually took a model from the Elevate Network, which was a group of women executives in New York. And what it is say when you sign up, we know about your name, your job title, your company, where you're located, and that's it. And then you sign up for when you're available. Early morning slots, midday slots, evening and night slots are available. You're available for 30 minutes for 8 or 9 consecutive weeks. This round will begin in August. And then we put together groups of about 9 people that meet every week for 30 minutes. And say you're in a group of 9, you'll meet for 10 weeks. First week is introductions, assign out the weeks. And then each week, one person is on the throne and they just bring a topic for the whole group to swarm on. Love all of my analogies here. And
Well, the throne one had different visualization for me, but we'll keep going. So
yeah. And topics are from, I've heard of a group that swarmed on elder care, employee management, marketing. I mean, it really, you can bring anything to the group. And, for years we tried to do mentor matching, and it's like your association running an online dating service. You're not going to find people their perfect match. With Hives, you expand your network by 8 or 9 people with each hive you participate in. And you may go back and say, when Joe had that employee issue, Donnie gave really good feedback. I have this employee issue. I'm going to circle back to him. So you just kind of expand your network of people who may be subject matter experts in little niche things. And we put as much diversity as possible into each hive. So different companies, different areas of the world, different job titles. So you get a really diverse perspective on all of these issues as well. And it's been really fun. You see people at NPMA events now that are sitting together, and I think, how the heck do they know each other? And it turns out they were in a hive together, and then ended up attending an event in person. So it's been a very cool thing coming out of our leadership networking group.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Well, Allie, it has been absolutely fantastic having you here on the podcast, and there's a lot of great info for our listeners, especially about what's happening with the association. Dan, anything that you want to add before we finish out here?
No, I think it was pretty terrific. We kind of went around the horn, and I think if anybody's interested, obviously they can get in touch with Allie. She's at NPMA, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, we'll link up a lot of these, references that we mentioned here. We're not going to post the outline, but we'll post a lot of the resources, things like SkillBridge, maybe even a way to get involved in the Hives program, and then also the events as well. And so, Allie, really appreciate you coming on board. Just a reminder for all of our listeners, all the topics and resources that we talked about today are going to be available on our podcast website. Just go over to pmpindustryinsider.com. Take a look under show notes, and we always appreciate good 5-star reviews on any platform that you happen to consume the podcast on. If you do have a complaint, concern, or just general, negativity in general, Dan really appreciates that. He would very much appreciate a personal phone call to him directly for that kind of feedback. And with that, we're all going to see you all. We're signing off. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye now.